back and with another Working Dragon Mystic roundtable with a special guest again. Mr. EA Koetting has joined us, and this time we have our very own Jade, who got to miss EA last time, and Bornoldus is back. And today we're going to talk about something that me, EA, and Born hit on a little bit before the last recording, and we wanted to do, and we've finally managed to get back here because we was wanting to talk about how entities affect human growth or evolution or development, however you would like to phrase it, because I know certain people use those words drastically differently. And I'm pretty sure most of us are going to have some varying difference of opinion here. And I'm sure we have a lot of overlap too. So I'm really looking forward to get into this. EA, since you're the guest here today, you want to kick it off a little bit?
Yeah, we were talking right before we hit the record button, and that generally, and it really doesn't matter what path you're walking. If you're actually consciously, intentionally walking a spiritual path, that path does evolve you. It turns you into a better and better person in just about every way. But I think the thing that we hit on is you do have to actually be walking it intentionally as a spiritual path. It can't just be your lifestyle or the clothes you want to wear, the way you want people to perceive you, because that's about ego. But if you're actually on the path that suits you, I had one of my I was going to say one of my mentors, a spirit that I summoned from Enochian Magick, the Aeon of Ra, that told me all paths lead to the same palace. And I was like, okay, that does make it. And then he went on to say, and that palace is your own self, that this is where this is all leading, is to you. And so I've kind of, and that's really helped me on my path, because my path is really an eclectic path of pulling everything I can, whether it's from Buddhism, Christianity, Satanism, whatever I can scoop up and figure out. That's my path, and I think that's perfect. And I think that's what we all do. I don't know. Tell me, because I think no matter even if you're Wiccan, Thelemi, whatever your path is, I think you go on it long enough and you pick up little things from little places that you maybe didn't expect.
I know I do. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, Dragon Magic's one of my foundationals, and many people will know Norse is too. But one of the things that I love about Dragon Magic and Norse that they definitely allow me to do, and the fact that I don't really follow per se a dogma, is I can just randomly run over and try something new and see what wisdom there is to glean from it and try out their methodologies and stuff like that and continue my learning and development as a magician, which even as someone who tries to share their knowledge and whatnot gives me a larger perspective to be able to share and help individuals find what is their path. I mean, I say it on the channel, it's like it's not about doing what I do, it's about using these methods and attempting to find something that works for you, that gets you what it is you're seeking. And I mean, yeah, I'm very eclectic. I've, tried ceremonial magic. I've worked through different books that will say they talk about vampiric style magics, blood magic.
How does that click with you? Because when I just getting you to know your energy and who you are a bit, I don't see a vampire in there.
Some of them are really interesting. Some of them are the authors come off a little kooky, almost like it's hard to take the authors serious, which makes it hard to take the system serious. But you see this in a lot of modern books from time to time. One system that I found interesting was the Sanguinomicon, which is hard to get these days, by Father Sebastian. But at least he lays out that this is a tradition he's built. He's building these egregoric energies. He's using this as an archetype. He lays out the parameters. And you get some interesting successes with it. What I didn't like is, and this is personal, this is a personal thing. It's also the same reason I don't do a lot of group work. The way that egregoric energy is built up it interconnects everyone. So everyone working with it is interconnected. And if you don't necessarily know who you're interconnected with, that can get a little, for me, it's just like, no, I like to choose who I'm spending my day with. So that's really that was the big turnoff for me. Outside that, it had some fascinating things in it. Now, that said, I do know a few sorcerers who specialize in stuff like blood magic and other stuff, and I've taken lessons from them. And the biggest takeaway I would say I got from them is when you're discussing something like that, look to the power of what is actually the life force and the focus, not the material. Because you've got this concept that if you have buckets and buckets of animal blood or whatever, there's going to be some magical, mystical, suddenly you don't have to be a skilled magician. This bucket is just going to solve your problems now. Whereas a magician needs basically a diabetic lance at one drop, and they're going to be able to do what they're doing. And
yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of different viewpoints and everything. And of course, the Goetia, which I've always enjoyed working with. And one book that it's been a really long time, I need to reread it. It's a complicated book. I know a lot of people who's like, I didn't understand it. And it's almost a rite of passage for a magician to read it cover to cover, get to it and be like, what did I just read? And go back. And that's The Sacred Magic of a Brahmin the Mage.
I was hoping you would say that book, because that's one. There are a few books, and this is definitely one of them that it took me several times of reading it before I put it away and said, screw this book. It's got nothing for me. Most of the squares are nonsensical, that you can use this square to make a feast appear of food that you can eat but not taste. You can't actually get full from it. Like, what good is this?
Right.
A square to make symphonies appear around you, and all kinds of just silliness that I'm like, what is this actually for? Combining that with Crowley's idea of the Holy Guardian Angel, the knowledge and conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel, that then starts to become a useful practice. Some of the squares, most of them I've never actually bothered to use, but I did go through the 6-month purification that's given in that book, and that was helpful. I think you can arrive to the same place through a lot of different better practices.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Jade, as the new lass on the block here, we'll throw you under the bus before Bornoldus this time.
What? Oh, goody.
Okay.
So where do you currently stand on these basic concepts before we get too deep?
It's definitely an interesting concept. I do see how entities can massively influence a practitioner's life. I was drawn to dragon magic because I was completely lost at the time when I was trying to find my place after leaving my way of life from all of my youth, and was attracted to dragons and the balance that they bring to the practitioner's life. And from working with them, they have caused so much influence and change in my life, of course, with me doing a lot of the legwork, and they just kind of guided me up that path.
Right.
I'm a completely different person than I was 3-4 years ago. And so I truly believe that, entities, they are here, even for people who might not even know that they're around. They're always, poking and prodding in people's ears, trying to help guide them in a better direction to better their lives. Whether people are willing to listen or do the work, that's up to them. Because it is up to the practitioner to actually do the work. Heck, for several of the things that I had to do for shadow work alone to get over some of my severe fears and issues that I had to get over, it was daunting work. And they're like, if you want to become a better practitioner, a better you have to do this work. We'll get you there. We'll get you to the goal that you want, but you have to do the work. And so I feel like, the entities, they are there to help us, even if humans are not ready to listen, or the people are not ready to listen. They're trying to, they have some general interest in making us better.
Yeah, no,
And
I'd agree with that. I mean, if you really want to practice magic, and EA, feel free to correct me, but you need to take that ego, you need to take that hubris, you need to take that sense of, um, just that I have to be the coolest kid in class, and put that crap on the shelf.
yeah.
And I have found if you really want to make progress, you have to look in the mirror, you have to focus on the ugliest, worst parts of you, admit your faults with the harshest of honesty. And once you know your faults, you're going to find entities are going to guide you forward in the understanding of where your weaknesses are, while at the same time, and the dragons are great at this with draconic alchemy, which we talk about in 102, also helping you offset the faults, improve them, and even in some cases eliminate them to make you a wholer person.
And even for the practice of magic, it's funny. It's like you're unconsciously going through some of the steps of like 12-step recovery groups, admitting you're powerless over your situation. You got to go like, I want this and I want it very badly, and I just can't get it. I'm powerless over my life and my situation at the moment. And so that there is a matter of having to have that ego, take the ego hit. Like, I don't have all my stuff together, and that's actually what I find. So calling up any kind of spirit or any kind of entity and saying, here's what I want and go do it for me, you might get results from that. It's much better to call them up and say, here's my problem. Can you help me? Guide me in what I need to do. Open the doors that need to be opened, even if I don't know what they are. And so that is that releasing. And in that way, these spirits, even if it's just a minor imp that you're calling, it in a way becomes your higher power.
Yeah. That's you hit it there real good too, because most people, like, they come to magic, practically the number one skill they want is, how do I summon entities?
Right.
I need an entity
call something up to just take care of the problem for them. They
and
don't
that's it. They want someone else to take care of the problem, where the real power of evocation is the ability to learn how to harness that power for thyself. And that is an amazing thing for a magician. And this is the odd thing which EA touched on. In order to actually gain that power, you actually have to look in the mirror and be like, all right, I'm screwed. I don't know what to do. I can't do it.
Yeah. And actually, that's one of the things I love about working with the entities on developing, self-mastery, is that they will willingly let you crash and burn for you to learn the lesson that you actually need.
Well, to the point that a good deal of the time, I do know that the spirits that work with me the most, those that guide me the most, are the ones that put the obstacles in front of me. They say, here's all these things that you now have to solve. And I asked Azazel about that once. I'm like, why do you keep screwing up my life, man? He says, well, there's somewhere that you want to get, and there's no pathway there. We're creating that pathway out of the obstacles that you're going to conquer. And so you climb over an obstacle, you figure out how to get over it, boom, you just found your pathway to where you wanted to get that wasn't there before.
Very true.
Like, okay, beautiful.
All right, Bornoldas, we've showed mercy. Your turn.
Best for last, right? No, I mean, honestly, a lot of the points to touch on are all, I mean, they're all pretty much present before you. A lot of the cases I've had plenty of myself. One of which actually that I can recall personally is in the very beginning of my own practice, this one particular entity, the Morrigan, had, it's hard to describe, but almost just a feeling of something is trying to get the attention. But I had not developed anything enough to know really what. And so, similar to the, your earlier point of, hey, like, if I don't know how to proceed, help me get to where I'm going. Like, show me what path I can take, or what skill to learn. Like, how do I get there? I ended up doing something along that line, and then I get in my recommended, ironically on YouTube, again, in my recommendeds, a particular video by one individual about the Morgan specifically. And it gave a breakdown of the whole thing and associations with this practice and a bit about the culture here. And it gave enough information where I'm like, okay, then I started looking into evocation and getting that conversation started. And that very first one was one of the most surreal experiences I had personally. But that kickstarted what ended up being an actual practice. Because before then it was like, I'll read a wiki page article here, or I found a random book that I happened to stumble on but didn't really find much. But the conversations with her, even just the conversations, the other stuff that came later was weird, but just the conversation alone ended up really skyrocketing personal development as well as practical, to the point where it's got a lot closer to where I am now.
No, I'd agree with that. My question, here's a good question, which Jade, I got two things we want to hit on that Jade touched on a little bit. When it comes to your practice, when it comes to attempting to walk this path, what is your all's experience with entities trying to help you move forward with what you asked for and procrastination?
Okay. So I'm going to touch on a little bit that I don't think I've even mentioned to Drake before, but he knows that before I found his channel, I almost quit Magic altogether. I was guided by several people that I knew who were trying to push me down a specific path, where basically saying you need to focus on doing this over and over again, and doing these little itty bitty charms before you could even touch doing ritual work. Had absolutely no results on anything. At that time, the deity I worked with the most was Freya. And I actually, when I was at the breaking point where I almost quit Magic, I was like, if there's any way that I can find someone or something to help me actually make my practice work before I give up, please help me. And not that long after that, I came across Drake's channel on YouTube. So thanking Freya for that little tidbit. So
Definitely give that to her.
absolutely guidelines for that.
Just to break in here real quick, Bjorn, you said something about stumbling. You kind of stumbled onto this. You stumbled onto
Yeah.
and it's like we don't necessarily walk our path. We're stumbling our asses down this path, and just like all of a sudden we land right where we're supposed to go. Oh, this is what I was looking for that I didn't know. And that kind of gets to your question, Drake, of like, are they when they're just doing what we tell them to, that's okay. That's weak. In my opinion, that's like lesser magic. It's the greater magic when we start getting surprised and going, I didn't know I needed this, but here it is.
Right.
And then
you're having a bunch of financial problems, and all of a sudden you end up tripping, falling down a bunch of stairs, and they're like, oh wow, I'm at a bank. How about that?
well, and that leads to my current debacle that I'm dealing with, which Drake thoroughly knows about. I was already well into my practice and completed my initial Dragon Magic path working for 101. Got a little curious. Bad idea as a practitioner.
Oh, you're talking about
really wanting to get a bit more of financial stability. And out of curiosity, because I knew the element of chaos can create big change, but didn't think of the fine print of they create change through destruction. I was like, I wonder what a little glitter piece of this ruler would feel like if I happened to reach out to him and ask for just a glitter of change to help me financially. One, I almost passed out in my kitchen because of the energy that smacked me in the face. And then I have dealt with a solid 2.5 years,
Easily.
almost 3 years worth of just
It's getting there.
Shit show change, to say the least. I've had to move my family twice, and mind you, I have a husband, 2 kids, and another family member living with us, plus 2 dogs. So you can imagine how drastic of a move this is. So I have to do that twice within 2.5 years. Had to change jobs, massively work on budgets, and it was a lot. And I'm still going through it. I keep on telling myself, as far as false hope, that I'm at the tail end of it, but who knows how much longer it's going to take. But I mean, the entities, no matter, I mean, they will help you. It may be exceedingly painful, like being thrown into a meat grinder for the change that you're asking, but they will respond if you ask for help, no matter what warning signs are popped up before you take that leap of faith.
Mhm.
I'll just say, I told you so.
It was that curious cat in me. I had to poke the bear. I
warned
honestly
you.
didn't think a little piece of glitter from that entity would cause so much destruction.
But you're looking forward to 103 now, aren't you?
Yeah, where you get to work with him again.
More directly.
By that time, it'll be more of a balance working, not just like a boom, there you go.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point though, because a lot of people think that they're heroes that want to go steal the dragon's gold. What would that really do to you? There is something. If a little speck of glitter can completely throw your life into circles, like imagine going and scooping up the actual treasure.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I mean, that's one of the reasons, like, I try to reiterate so often is, what does a dragon mean when they use the term chaos or the element of chaos? Because this day and age, we think of chaos as silliness, nonconformness. I'll do what I want, just random mischief. That's what we think of. When the dragons say element of chaos, they mean massive change through destruction and creation. There is no middle ground. There's no gray area. There's no chaos light. It's just, we can create this, but we have to destroy all this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gets people in so much trouble with those dragons. And I mean, if you read Conway's work, she mentions them. She warns people against them, but she really doesn't cover them too deeply because, well, I mean, in my correspondence back and forth with her, even she avoided them. And then you had the Maelstrom dragons, which actually fall below chaos, and they're raw, pure, unchecked change, okay? And she, in all her books, gave less than a page to them because I think she knew what I'm learning. It's like, if you talk about it, somebody out there is going to run and jump from, they're not going to do the starting point. They're not going to learn to meditate. They're not going to learn trance work. They're not going to learn the foundational skills a magician needs. They're going to just jump to what they think is cool.
Couldn't imagine a person that would do that.
I can think of a couple.
I mean, I
think all of us here have done that to some
without
extent.
being blown up at least once metaphysically, right?
Yeah, you can't really call yourself seasoned if you haven't
It's almost a rite of
few
passage.
horrible accidents.
But it's interesting that Conway would do that, because there is an interesting thing that, okay, so when I'm writing my books, I'm not, it's not me, there's something else coming through me and something else telling me this needs to be here. And I think that Conway was doing, I'm not going to tell you too much, but I'm going to drop this seed here so you can see it. You know it exists, but yeah. It's a really
and you
thing.
may be onto something, because initially I did a video on the 9 rulers, which it didn't take long for the dragons to come and like, all right, we need to take this video down, cut this out, and just stick with the lower rulers for now. And I was like, but info. And they're like, no, once 103 is there, once the tools to do this safely are available, we'll go back and redo this. But until those tools are available, it's hard to separate. Are they just doing the stupid, or is it a lack of actual tools available?
Mm.
And I was like, okay, that's fair. And
Right.
honestly,
And-
when it comes to the dragons, I respect their request because let's be honest, I wouldn't be where I'm at without them.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, there's going to be people who do that anyway, but at least the tools are available so we can go,
Right,
You
right,
ignored this. Stupid.
right. And I mean, it makes sense what they requested. So I did. Some people weren't happy that I did it, but it's like, I'm honoring their request for the information they taught me and gave me they said, you can share this.
There's consumers of the things that we do don't necessarily always understand that we have bosses. The ones who are teaching us, they get to decide actually what goes in the book or what goes in the course. Like, and if they say no, okay. Like there's a very I have been told very, very, very powerful secrets that they're like, you're not publishing this. This is not to go out to the world. This is for you. And a part of that is, I think, with me to sometimes just help myself, not feel like I've got to run and share everything with the world, but hey, like this is for you. Just cherish it,
Right. And yeah, I've
Right.
got plenty. I mean, I got dragons that they're dragons that I've befriended. They're not part of the path workings or anything. And every dragon that's in the path workings, I've gone to them directly and be like, hey, this is happening. Are you down for being a part of it? And even the dragons I seal, I think it was last week during a live stream, someone asked me, could they channel their own? They don't want to use something that was given to me personally. And I was like, no, the dragons gave me this for everyone. This was specifically given so I could share it to everyone. I never share anything that they're like, Drake, this is for you. I don't give that out.
Right.
Let me ask you something on that vein. This is might put you on the spot a bit, but
That's fair.
do people ever come to you and they're like, hey, I got this revelation from a dragon and here's what it told me, and you look at it and you're like, dude, there's nothing there. You're making things up.
Weirdly, yeah, like
Lights. Curtain.
there are a lot of things where people are coming through and they're talking about revelations, and I always like when they start off, it's like the dragons gave me this particular revelation. I want your thoughts on it. And there's a part of me that genuinely gets excited. I do, because I love to hear about people's encounters and everything. And some of them, I mean, it is amazing. And then others, they literally just sent me a message that could just be straight from the script of Skyrim or the Aragon books or even Dragonheart. And it gets hard to answer it because I try not to be that guy to be like, mate, you're just full of BS. Sometimes I'm straight up with them. I was like, everything the dragons have taught me about their rules, their laws, and these things, this isn't particularly fitting. So I would meditate on it more to make sure, what part is them and what part might be superimposed of your hopes or your thoughts and your bias. Which,
Fortunate how easy it is to mistake in the beginning of a practice.
I still do it to this day.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, because the vision that's coming to me is panning for gold, and you're sifting through, and like some of that's gold, some of those are just rocks.
Yeah,
And you really got to figure out and figure. I don't know what's the key to discerning that. What's the key for people to be able to like make that separation between their own thoughts or their own hopes and what they're actually receiving?
and see, that is a hard one. That is a hard one to answer. The best I can
Let
do
me
is
know if you ever nail that down.
First off, I keep journals. I harp on journals all the time. Whether you call it a grimoire, a journal, I don't care what you call it. But write your shit down in as good a detail as you can. And put your success to the test. That's one of the reasons I love financial magic, because you have a bank account. It has a number. You know how successful or unsuccessful that number is. If your prosperity and financial magic is working, that number should increase. Period.
Right. And most, sorry, you're going to say.
And But beyond that, I also always go back to my work and meditate on it to find the flaws in it. One set of videos I did, the 28 Laws of Magic. One of the reasons I love those 28 laws is I have tested them. I keep wanting to prove them wrong. Because, people's like the Hermetic laws are distilled down from these and all this, and that's great. And there's nothing wrong with the Hermetic laws, but I like the details of the full 28, if that makes sense. I'm a details kind of guy. But just because I like them, just because they've worked up to now, I still meditate on them. I still put them to the test, just like I do my own work, because that's how we evolve as magicians. Maybe something that truly functions 100% today, maybe on the backside here, there's a fault in it, and we've just not seen this yet. And it may be months or years before we see this fault and we can make it better. Because there was a point in my life where the phrase, do what thou will and harm none, probably served me a benefit. I'll admit it didn't last long, but it probably did. So a magician can outgrow certain things. Just like we mentioned, EA, that two things that seem to be paradoxes both can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is first off, you have to be willing to be wrong, which I did a video on that. And you have to question your own ideals. And if you do that and you're constantly critiquing yourself, at least today, you're going to be the most enlightened magician you can be today. And that's going to help you to achieve that goal to be a better magician tomorrow. Where that takes you a year from now, only time will tell.
Yeah, we're all really, really blessed by this this miracle of the internet that in pretty much real time we can update our audiences with hey, I was wrong 5 years ago. Check out what I've learned now, and it's accepted. Whereas at any other time to write a whole other thesis that you're going to publish, most of the time you don't have even the time for that. But at this point, we can pretty much instantaneously, oh, hey guys, check this out. Check out where, and this allows for such an exponential increase of our collective understanding.
It does. It really does. For better or worse, because I mean, like, people ask me, Drake, why don't you go to TikTok? And I'm like, I will never be on TikTok. I've seen what's over there. I don't want to be a part of it.
That's funny.
But you know what? That's a great question, though. How you know what is and isn't true. So, Born, Jade, out of curiosity, as both of you have struggled in the past, I know, and Jade, you even admitted you were just about ready to leave. How did you come to those conclusions?
Well,
I mean, how do you know if this is the real deal or if it's, I don't know, maybe been playing too many video games?
Well, I mean, similar to an experiment that I mentioned in our last live stream recording, a lot.
Full detail on that. That was a lot.
Not going into full detail. If you want to know what the context is, go watch that other thing. Plug the video. But long story short, the way that information ended up becoming a little bit more concrete and less, am I just in my own head, ended up being repetition. Getting the same result repeatedly over the course of a long period of time, whether that being the particular experiment in question, remember, watch that video, or if it's a particular nugget of wisdom or something that, let's say you have a conversation with an entity, and even if you've gone through the process and forgot about it, they keep coming back with you with this one same proverb or a similar situation that ends up learning the same lesson. And then some of us, you might be yourself, be honest if you are, don't learn it the first time or the 18th time or seemingly at all from the teacher's perspective. But eventually, if you start seeing a repeating pattern of, okay, I've had a number, this is where record keeping does come in majorly into play. If you go back through and read your journals, 5 years into your practice, and you realize I've run into the same situation over and over and over. Why have I not fixed that? Maybe I should fix that.
Well, it's crazy with that if they're really trying to give you a message, whoever they is, whoever's guiding you,
Right.
if they're trying to get a message across and you keep ignoring it, if it's really important that you get that message, it gets louder and louder until you're getting in car crashes and your friends are abandoning you. Your whole life is falling down. You're like, well, okay, now I'm going to see it. Now I'm going to pay attention.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, similar to this also kind of technically goes back to the previous question before. Jade, you mentioned that during the procrastination of and not necessarily getting on the topic that was needed and getting that fixed, you went through a lot of physical things that ended up happening.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, a lot of physical things in general, in life, in situation, and all of that. The both of you, Drake and Jade, will remember after I had finished DM 101, there was a long stint of time where we were working on fairly intense ritual work, every day for several months. And there was a very basic key that was being forgotten. Simple, like even something simple. It doesn't necessarily have to do with a lot, but just self-care and grounding. That energy.
Yeah, somebody was doing intense ritual for months on end with no grounding and centering.
I completely ignored grounding that whole time. And I went through a complete mental mix-up. I mean, paranoia about everyone around me. Like,
yeah, we had to basically have
what's their motive behind them asking me this?
Like,
why are they asking me if I'm okay so often? What's going on? Which one's going to jump at me first? They're all out to get me, all of them. And eventually, it got louder, and of course, I was still doing this, but it got louder and louder and worse. And then some other stuff was happening where now people that had not spoken to me in a while were giving me text messages or calling, just checking in randomly. Like, I haven't spoken to you in 5 years. Why are you suddenly sending me a message on Facebook or something? You're like, hey, how are you? Are you doing okay? Like, have they been talking to you? They've been talking to you, haven't they? And eventually we had this big old sit down. I had to step back, spoke with other, the people involved, spoke with some of the entities that I interacted with during that time. They're like, yeah, woosah. Step back, evaluate what's going on, think it through. Is that really what's happening, or are you just reading into it a bit much? Do some grounding. No, really, do some grounding. And it almost in that one particular venture, luckily, was a very quick fix, because once the problem was realized and really sat down, it took, what was it, maybe a week or two?
Maybe a week. Yeah, it was not.
Yeah, it was a very quick turnaround.
Luckily, that one was a short fix, but
now, if magic was all in your head, I don't know that would be the experience you would have at all.
No, I don't think it would.
No.
That's the really interesting thing, is like, because you're opening these, you are getting zapped by lightning repeatedly, and yeah, if you're not grounding that lightning, it's gonna fry you out. But again, that would only happen if you're actually dealing with lightning. It doesn't happen if you're just thinking about lightning. So
the battery doesn't start to corrode just because it thinks it's overcharged.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have such a harsh experience like Bourne did as far as not grounding, but there was a stint of meditations that I was working on where I ended up getting pretty ill from not grounding during those meditations. And so that was like my very quick lesson of self-care and meditating. But to kind of stem back to Drake's original question, the journal work honestly has been the best way for me to show that the magic that I'm doing is a success.
And to unpack it, journaling is so important for me to be able to even understand what just happened. Sit down and actually write about it and go. And it's like things that I don't think I remembered, I start writing, oh, wow, okay, there's that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So
Yes.
when you process what just
Yes.
happened, and I don't know if this is the same for you all, but for me, it helps me actually freaking remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a year
And-
down the road, it's so easy to forget. Like, what were we talking about then? Like,
Yeah.
what was actually said? Oh, wait, I kept detailed records.
And there's
Yeah.
actually been times where I've gone back through my notes from like 2 years ago and be like, oh, I actually remember that happening. Let me dive back into that and see if I can uncover some more that I looked into
Right.
and
Yeah.
uncovered even more information just from reviewing old journals.
Mm-hmm. And that's a similar. It's interesting that you mentioned that as well, because I also remember another time, speaking of entities influencing things, a different issue that had started to resurface. I ended up going through some of my own journals on my bookshelf at one point. And I recall one of the books actually falling off and just opening randomly to a page specifically. And, I just picked it up and just read through it because I'm like, what the hell? Why not? And I'm like, that has to do with what I'm current. Okay. Fit. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's
Crazy
a
how
common
they do stuff
occurrence.
like that.
That is a
Yeah.
common occurrence.
Mhm.
So I actually did think of an interesting question I wanted to try and pick everyone's brain on, especially yours, EA. Because we are talking about how entities do help us grow and evolve. So far, we've been really focused on the personal. This is a question I get a lot in the live streams because people's always trying to figure out which is the real path. And when you're doing that, you look at all these entities that are commonly referred to as creator entities, whether it's Zeus, Odin, Yahweh, Le Grand Zombie, whatever particular creator entity fits within that paradigm, that belief system, there's usually one or more there. And it's like, how can they all be there? And how do they function together? Now, for me, that was a big problem because I've said it before, I came from a Christian background, which tells you there's one singular, true, divine creator. However, that never fully made 100% sense to me, which when I did get into the occult, that means I had a lot of questions. I became a toddler all over again. It's why. And at least from my findings, it appears that they all are creators, but instead of creating individually, they seem to be creating together as a unified, weirdly like a team, because we as humans try to put them against each other, but it does very much, from my findings, seem like they're working together. And I mean, so now we're talking on a larger scale here, definitely. EA, we'll start with you on this.
Yeah, so my very first book, Kingdoms of Flame, was just a simple grimoire with 56 spirits that I had discovered. They were pretty equally divided. Spirits that are just there to give you information, demons and angels. And so you had these three divisions. But as I worked with them more and more and more, they would start referencing each other. The demons would say, "Oh, for this question, you want to go over to this angel." And I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. I thought you guys were enemies. I thought you guys didn't like each other." "Oh, no. You don't understand. This is the way that it got explained to me and that I've come to understand it. That you can have all kinds of different entities working on a problem. As long as they're all working on the same problem, they have no problem cooperating. It's actually not, it's not that they have a conflict in their nature. They're just approaching the problem from a bunch of different angles. A demon's going to bring something completely different that an angel wouldn't bring. But as long as they're working on the same problem, they have no problem cooperating.
Yeah, see,
So yeah, and I think
I-
if you expand that out with like all religions and all paths, I do think that there is this intermingling that's going on. And like Jade had said, they're they have a vested interest in our development and our growth. For some reason, like every single pantheon out there is looking at us. And so it's really interesting.
and perhaps that's the big question there is why? Because I would agree with you, like in my experience as a general, because I have found angels and demons that break this rule. But as a general, angels try to find a smoother road. So a nice, steady incline, doesn't feel like you're going uphill. Nice, clear pavement, no potholes. Demons, they go off road. They don't care how steep the cliff is. They don't care what the terrain's like. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Buckle up and hang on. They're going to get you there. So depending on your level of comfort and enjoyment of adrenaline, one or the other may be better. Now, I have seen angels that definitely are into extreme sports, and I've seen the gentler side of demons. That's why I said general. So I would definitely agree they have different approaches. But why do these entities have such a vested interest? Because I'll be honest, me personally, outside, I know the dragons, I know the Fae, I know the Norse, I know demons and angels, they have a vested interest in us growing and becoming the best, whatever it is we can be. I have never been able to find a good answer for why the flip they care.
Mm-hmm.
The closest I've come to an understanding of that is in my tutelage under Azazel. I asked him pretty much that exact thing. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What's your? And he says that he showed it to me in that we're evolving like this. We're trying to become more and more like them. They're also trying to become more like us. There are almost like we're a bridge, or we ourselves as entities, we're a gateway that they can use to come through into this physical world. And so there is something there. I mean, I look at Moses, right? In any of the ancient prophets, in really any scripture, God comes to them and says, raise your staff and give this command. Moses has to raise his staff and give his command. Moses has to be the one who channels that into this world for something to happen. It's not that God necessarily couldn't, or could he not? Could he not? Does he actually require the human being to be the vessel of his creation? It does seem like there's something. The way Azazel put it to me, he says, you're so hell-bent on getting to our world and understanding our world that you don't understand how desperate we are to understand you and to come into your world.
I've heard similar, because it's like the physical experience that we take for granted. It's like that's something they themselves seek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's to put an analogy on it, it's almost like it's almost like a game developer, someone who codes a whole world and people works with a team to build a storyline that still wants to play the game.
It's actually not a bad analogy.
That's a really good analogy. That's one. And if the game, if it's a good enough game, then the developer will be able to throw themselves into it and still have a surprising experience, still go on an adventure.
Right.
If the create and I think what you just described is the human experience, or even the experience of creation as a whole, is that we all came from some source, and that source is using us to experience itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, okay, here we go. We're going deep now, because that means that if the source is experiencing itself, then the source is growing, and as we grow, it grows.
Yeah.
And that is one thing I've mentioned in the live streams. People's like, well, divinity, how do we get there? It's like, what you don't understand is the gods are still growing. The gods are still learning. They're not perfect. They're still growing too. It's like, if your goal for ascension is to get out of responsibility and be done with work, newsflash, this is the easy level.
Yeah, I was like, if that's your direction, you are going the wrong way.
Yeah, you're going the wrong way. This is easy mode. It gets hard after that.
Mhm.
Like it honestly mirrors a lot of like school leveling, honestly. If you were to take it like we're currently in first grade here, it looks, the college student looks like they really know what they're doing. And then once you finally get there, you realize student loans, and I got to worry about these classes, and my math's a lot harder than yours now.
Mhm. Which is funny because I think a lot of people come to every sort of magic with that, like, I want to find the shortcut. I want to get the easy way. And it's like, if you want the easy way,
Yep.
stay away from this entirely.
It is. I've said that a million times.
Absolutely.
I was like, if
Yep.
you want easy, stay away from magic. Because if there's one thing I've learned, and I've seen it in every instance of anyone studying magic, the more magic you know, the more problems you are capable of handling, which means the universe looks and says, well, this one can handle all this. And the universe uses problems and strife and turmoil and, stressors to help us grow, because that, like EA was saying, that's the mountains you're climbing to make those paths, which means it can now throw more at you.
Yeah.
Yes. Bastards.
Now, one interesting thing that I'd like to pick you guys' brains on is a few years ago, everything started changing. Everything in my life, and not just in my life, but me. I suddenly wanted to start putting down the drugs I had been relying on. My diet started changing. The people I started hanging out with started changing. And I asked one of my mentors about that, and he says, it's all part of the transformation. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, you're in the middle of a transformation. Just throw yourself into it. Let yourself find out what you need, because who you're becoming is not who you've been. And so I wanted to throw that out to you guys, as far as like, as you're going on your path, have you found just like the things you want to eat, the people you want to, the things you want to spend your time doing, that this all starts to just change almost like automatically?
Yeah. There's a lot of things that have, and I recall having a similar conversation with the Morrigan specifically, and she gave, like, I was worried with a lot of stuff that was just happening. I wasn't actively doing a lot of it; it just happened. And in order, you could call it mollifying. You could also just call it suck it up. But essentially what she then ended up telling me is, you don't want to end up a half-formed butterfly.
Ooh.
You don't want to break out of that cocoon before it's finished, or halt the process entirely. Otherwise, you're going to be some deformed shit that you may as well just beg for death at that point.
I've honestly, just reflecting back, have made massive transformations. I mean, not just metaphysically, but in my personal life too. I was tired of the way I was living, ended up changing my diet, lost a lot of weight from doing that. And then honestly, I never would have thought, like 2 years ago, that I would be heavily working with entities that specialize with the dead, because one of my biggest fears all of my young adulthood was death. I would have severe just mental breakdowns when I would think about it, especially when when family members pass on and stuff like that. I never handled it well. And now I'm heavily deep diving with entities of the dead, and never thought I would end up down this path, but it's, again, another level of transformation.
Let me pick your mind on that just for a second, because that's crazy, because I avoided necromancy just about my whole life, because most of the necromancers I knew were really not healthy. They weren't people I wanted to be like. I'm like, you guys are kind of disgusting and you smell bad. But
the weird thing is, like, the moment you said that, it's like, I know the smell you're talking.
Yeah, but I was like,
I know this sounds horrible. I'm sorry, but it's just like,
But it started just calling me, and so I finally started leaning into it. I've got a death altar set up, and every day I go kneel before that death altar, and I've got a whole skeleton hanging from the ceiling there, and I look at it, and I think about myself dying, or I'll do a meditation of imagining the people I love most are dying, and really having to confront death. And there is the thing that used to scare me so bad is now a relief, because then I'm done. Once I get done from that death meditation, I get up and I go hug my daughter, and I call my fiance, and it's like I'm excited to be alive because I know it's going to end at some point. I don't know. What's your experience with it, Ben Jade? Like, what'd you have to conquer to be able to like do that?
I honestly had to meditate and face death itself, and essentially face it head on, because that was honestly what was holding me back. The fact that, one day I'm no longer going to be here, and realizing, what happens after, as Drake says, these meat suits expire.
Yeah.
I actually had a personal test on this very recently. My very close relative, he passed away, and a couple years ago, if this would have happened to me, I probably would have been completely debilitated for several weeks. After working with the entities that I've been working with, and just the meditations, and actually I shadow worked the heck out of it, which actually helped prepare me for this exact moment. I maybe had a day or two of just a slew of emotions, pulled myself together, and then I've been fine, because honestly, I know that I can honestly evoke them whenever I want to and speak with them. I mean, hell, Drake knows. I've called up my great grandmother and got her recipes that she only knew in her head, and was able to remake them and serve it to my family. And they're like, "How did you do that?"
Yeah. Just that alone is a blessing in and of itself.
Jay, I won't go into details, but I will say this much. Knowing what I know of the details of those events, I cannot say how proud I am of you. Because you did. You took a day or two. But knowing where you were 2 years ago and seeing how, like, you didn't soldier through this. You didn't drag yourself through. There was no bootstraps in this. This was just, I need 2 days. I need the process, and boom, you were off. I am very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
I think there is like a beauty and a grace to death when you come into alignment with it, when you're not resisting it. There is a beautiful thing that happens there and most other, in our culture, we've made the most important things. I think death is a very important thing. We're all going to experience it, death and sex and the things that kind of make us human. We try to keep at arm's length. You don't touch the dead in our society. You don't where in a lot of societies they'll actually spend days preparing and dressing and working with the body of the dead. We just don't do. And
Heck,
so we have
they dig them up once a year and have them for dinner, or have them at the dinner table and dance with them and treat them as if they're living again.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So, for me, my goddaughter Tina is the one that really showed me that, because at a very young age.
Oh God, Jade's descending. What's happening?
Right? It happened right in front of us.
The rapture, oh God.
Oh boy.
We told you, teleportation practice after. Sorry.
I won't go too deep into her business, but she basically was given a medical expiration date of like 13 or 14. Now, I watched this little girl. She never shed a tear over that. Instead, I watched her live every day looking at the world, looking at a sunrise, looking, just enjoying everything. Now, by all odds, she's well past that number. And she's been given medically, they says, well, it looks like you're going to just have a normal life now. To this day, she still looks at the world with the same eyes, though, because of how much life means, how much those experience means. And watching this little girl and watching how she's grown and to the woman she's become and the way she tackles her problems, the way she seeks things out with such passion, that taught me a lot. Because there was an old song, I want to say it's country, that's Live Life Like You're Dying. That song always makes me think of her. It really does, because that is what she does. And in my time in Louisiana around the Cajuns, you know, like I got to attend several Cajun funerals. They celebrate the life. They don't mourn. They celebrate the life of the person. And I've always thought that was absolutely beautiful. So I think there is something to that. There really is.
Yeah. Well, that even makes it more interesting to me why these beings are helping us evolve when we're just gonna die. Like our lives, because I look at any of the entities I work with, if I start actually like scrying into how long they've been here, well, longer than the human race, most of them. And so it's like, well, wait a minute, our lifelines are so short. You can teach me everything you want to teach me, and by the time I get it, I'm just gonna die. And you know, I do have a pretty firm belief that I'm able to carry some of those lessons into my next incarnation, or maybe even into the next level that I reach next time. But at the same time, it's like, wow, that's why bother teaching me when I'm just gonna
I
die?
asked that question to
Right.
Angus Salor, the ruler of the fire dragons, because him and I have a weird friendship. And I was asking him because he's always very direct and blunt. And I was asking him, I was like, with as short as our lives are to entities, much less dragons, why do you guys invest so much time in trying to help us? And I was like, especially look, and I directed it at me. I was like, me. I mean, as big of a screw up as I've been in my life and all the dumb stuff I've done, why me? And he's like, do you ever think that was why? Perhaps I'm tuning in for the next great episode of what the hell's he going to do next? I'm like, no, I never. Okay, we're done. It's like I never thought of it that way.
And that's an interesting point right there, because it kind of comes back to what Born was saying about the video game analogy, where it's like, maybe we're just really entertaining.
I mean, I could see it.
That could be
really
part of
could.
it, for all we know. I mean, how many times have you ever looked at like reality TV and wanted to say, like, you know what, I could really teach that guy a lesson?
I mean, Born and Jay can tell you, like, I've shared stories of my past, and I wonder how I survived.
Oh, yeah.
I really do.
Skylight's my favorite.
I mean, we talked about changes. I mean, who I am today and is a pair composed to 10, 20 years ago, completely different person. Completely. And like you asked, EA, yes, my eating habits have changed. My priorities have changed. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, and that kind of, you know, one thing that I've gotten specifically from Belial is that even just coming in contact with these beings starts to change us. Now, even if they don't, you know, they could tell us something that we just ignore, we don't have to take any of their advice. Just the fact that their energy has connected with our energy starts to change things pretty much automatically.
It really does, because just that brief bit of contact, it starts having interactions right away. You know, and you know, it might not be that same day, it might not even be that same week or year, but I mean, the change does occur, even if it's only subtle.
Yeah. And I would say most changes do tend to come off subtle and snowball down.
Most do.
Most, not all. I wish they.
Some do not.
Some of them.
Some really don't.
No.
But no, most of the time it is a little seed that gets planted that like I can look at like where I'm at right now. It again seems like I've stumbled to it, and it seems like there's been a million different accidents that have happened. But there was, you know, years ago, somebody or something poked me and made me turn just, you know, a couple degrees to the left, and then that set everything on a different course.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, ooh, what's that? huh, that's interesting. And
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
you go down that road and see where it goes. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's
Mhm.
fascinating.
It is.
But one thing I do get asked, and I find this one an interesting question, and we got to be careful on this one, I think. But if entities are this involved in humans, this interested in humans, why are we so messed up? Why are we having so many problems globally?
Well,
Ego and
That
not
is an
willing to take
interesting one.
accountability is what I'm
Mhm.
sticking with.
That is a big one right now.
when
Yeah.
the-
Yeah, I can see that.
there's
Refusal
also
to take accountability.
there's also the fact that we are not being properly represented. That I don't want to go kill anybody. I don't want to go shoot guns or blow people up. Most people don't. Most people just want to live their lives and whatever and get by.
Yeah.
But it's these psychopaths that are at the top pretending to represent us that are creating these wars, that are creating this division. And so it is, I mean, if we were being truly represented, I think we'd have a lot less of that because, I mean,
Yeah.
the military industrial complex is no joke. It is an entire complex set up to just feast off of human death. And so if we were being more, better represented, and I don't know how that would even happen. I mean,
That's a tricky question in and of itself. It is. I agree.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, one of the first things I'll point to is the entities that have great interest, but they also have a great respect for the concept of free will, which falls into what Jade said with the accountability. You know, we're making choices. It's like they are trying to help, but at the same time, they allow us to screw up or succeed. And yeah, I agree with you. Representation, that's one of those things because, I mean, I've been asked because many people know this on this channel. We're a military family here. My wife's an active duty. You know, I support the troops. I help out. I help the chaplains whenever I get a chance. I love to give back in those ways. Now, does that means I'm pro, hey, let's just start wars with everyone? Obviously not. There's a difference in supporting the men and women who defend this thing we call freedom and just being an idiot. Right.
You know what? I know a lot of people who served in the military, and most of them, when we're talking about their best experiences, it's when they helped a city figure out how to get water to their city so people could
You're
drink. It's
absolutely
when
correct.
they help
You're
build
absolutely
things back up. That the actual destruction is not what they actually live for.
No.
Most service members actually live for the good side, the positive side.
Right. You are correct on that. And the reason I say that is that, like, how can you do that? And how can you believe in that so much when the politicians are such crap? And it's like, well, there's the kicker. At no point did I say I'm pro politician. I was like, are there some that I like? Not really. I'll be honest. Are there some that I think their policies might be going the correct direction? That would be a better way to phrase it. Yes.
Yeah, it's probably a better way.
But by and large, do I think that it's most likely a corrupt system? I unfortunately do have to lean that direction.
In a long list of bad options, you got to try to pick the best out of it.
And I'm trying to do this without getting too political, obviously, but
yeah.
And I think it's real important to separate those things out because too many people take it out on the troops and the veterans.
Right. Well, and every society does have and needs to have your class of warriors. We need to have warriors in our societies to defend, to protect, and to have the strength to come and build it up, to build the bridges, to build the roads. That we do need that. That's something that we really, I don't think we can do without. I honestly don't know that humanity is ever going to reach a point that we don't have war of some sort.
No, I don't think so. I think that's, I really do. I think that's,
I don't really think so.
And it's not just because of humans. We look at nature. animals fight for territory. We are animals, people. Get over it. Put your hubris away. We are animals. And beyond that, let's even set this violence aside. Like, I have friends in Japan. I have friends in Ireland. I have friends in, well, we won't say that one just because it's a hot buzzword. Let's say England. And we've discussed this, and my Irish friend started it. He's like, I won't even try to do his accent, but he asked point blank, he's like, where do you guys stand on this whole one world people? And I mean, you suddenly see everybody, oh, well, you know. But the young lady from Japan spoke up first, bless her. And she's like, I don't like it. And I was like, okay, can you explain that? And she's like, yes. She's like, I love Ireland. I love Irish people. I love the Irish culture. She's like, I love my culture. She's like, I know many of you here at the table love my culture. You love my people. She's like, and in Japan, we love to share our culture. That's why when you come over, we're going to invite you for a tea ceremony. You'll often be gifted a kimono. And she's like, I even love British culture. She's like, one of the things, like her earliest memory was her dad showing her old Benny Hill and Monty Python skits.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's probably aging me because I actually knew what she was talking about. And she's like, if we were all one, that vanishes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I hadn't considered that, and that is terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because one of the reasons I love to travel is that very thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the reason I love, I took time to learn to cook. Because I do truly believe foods can tell you so much about a person, because local cuisine grew out of necessity of the culture and the philosophies and overcoming everything they did. I think that there's a certain beauty there, but that's.
Well, you know, that's interesting. I can't remember what show. I was watching some cooking shows. I'm not a great cook, but good God, I love to watch people who are do what they do.
We'll have to have you for a barbecue sometime, EA.
Oh, nice. There's this, I believe he was a Japanese chef that he would bring water from his hometown with them wherever he went, because he couldn't cook with other people's water. It doesn't taste the same. It makes the food completely different if you're going to use not the water. And I was like, wow, that's kind of a similar kind of analogy to what you talked about with that you've got to honor the culture, honor where it's coming from, and at the same time to allow for natural evolution of things, because there's no way that girl in Japan isn't getting influenced by our Americans, you know.
Oh God, no, they love our culture over there. So there's a reason they do a lot of their anime characters, and they actually specifically draw them with American features often because they love American culture so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a fascinating. I love people. I love to understand them and their viewpoints. So, I mean, I was surprised that conversation came up, and when it did, I was like, "Oh, we're getting in a fight here," but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And I mean, leave it to an Irishman to start a fight while having drinks, right? But
yeah.
But I'm so glad he asked the question, because that's that question these days. Everybody's afraid to ask it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the understanding of a group of friends who's known each other quite a while, like, to answer his question, we had to drop a lot of walls, a lot of barriers, and really show not heart. We had to show soul, if that makes sense, to answer his question.
Yeah. No, that is a tricky one. Well, and the biggest issue is when it starts to be enforced by our non-representatives of we're all going to come together and you're all going to listen to us. It's like, well, no, I actually think that I think government needs to be as local as possible. This is why I'm big into helping my community and actually doing things in my local community, because that's where we're the ones living here.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, again, I won't go deep, but I'm more libertarian. I'm more personal, individual freedoms, and I don't like being told what to do. Let's just be honest.
Well, and I feel like we don't need a lot of telling what to do. I feel like well, for instance, you look at Ireland. Ireland lived for over 1,000 years without an actual government. That it was the clans taking care of each other.
Yeah.
That if you were a complete POS, well, you didn't get to do trade with us, and you're probably going to starve to death. Good luck.
Yeah. Which, it's kind of weird because I was actually speaking with Odin on this topic. And, I was trying to get an understanding on how things are moving and trying to find, because you get worried. You see things in the world, you get worried. You try to take counsel. And he was saying something very similar. And he's like, you've got to remember the people. He's like, you've read the Havamal. You've heard my words on understanding your neighbors. You've heard my words on being aware of your surroundings. He's like, go to your library, check the history books. There was a time where you would have been a Kentuckian. He's like, and it's not a time that long ago. He's like, because the local meant more. He's like, you guys still have the ghost of locality. You're just not using it right. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're all about buy local, shop local, farm local. He's like, but you're missing the heart and soul. And like, this is one of the times like Odin was like, usually he's that really gruff kind of grandfather figure, but I mean, he was really passionate about this and really excited that I was asking this question. And I'm not even going to begin to say I fully understand what he was saying. Sorry, not there yet. But it is something I've been meditating on.
It'll come eventually. Hopefully.
And it hit me because there was a time I didn't want to tell anybody I was from Kentucky. I didn't. And now I have no problem admitting who and what I am. And, heck, I fully plan when I retire, if I can, I'm going back to Appalachian region. There's just something about those mountains that it took me getting away from them to realize how much they meant. And perhaps that's a very human thing.
Well, and that kind of brings me to thinking about there are transformations happening, not just in our individual selves, but we can see it in society and in the world at large. Like, things are getting shaken up and things are moving. And I've reached out specifically to Papa Legba and said, look, grandfather, what's going on here? This is getting scary. What do I do? And my question to him at that point, this was back in 2017, 2016. I'm like, well, can we start to use magic to influence world leaders? What can we do to change this? And he says, no, don't worry about that. You can't change it. What you need to do is you need to find your sanctuary. And that's what led me to buying the property I built my house on. That it is, I mean, first off, I've got a good eagle's nest lookout spot to the highway, so nothing's coming at me that I can't see if things go bad. But then also it felt right. I stood here and I felt safe. I felt like this is my land that I'm safe on. And I think that there is something really, as we're going forward into more and more crazy times, because it only gets more interesting from here, that is the thing. Where's your sanctuary? Where can you come to that it doesn't matter what's going on in the outside world, that you control this space?
Yeah. Weirdly, I had a very similar conversation with Papa Legba. Because again, like I have this thing, I will ask the same question to get different viewpoints from same entities. Not because I don't think one entity didn't answer it. It's the viewpoint difference. that I value. And he gave a very similar answer. He was talking about, I mean, he said, you can't change the way things will move forward. He's like, that's part of how humans grow. That's part of how you all will better yourselves. It's scary. Change is terrifying. What you do is you focus on you. You focus on your family. You focus on the tribe you choose. And you ready yourself. You ready them to overcome whatever challenges present. And I looked at him and I said, okay, you make it sound like I need to become a crazy prepper. And he's like, that's not what I'm saying. He's like, you need to know what you can do. You need to know what your resources are. You need to understand how you're going to tackle different scenarios that may present. There is a difference. And I was like, okay. And I've been trying to do that. I've been trying to do that. And in doing that, I've also been, trying to communicate with the people I know and love and seeing where they're at as well. So
well, there's a bit of what Jade was talking about too, of like what's the problem with us is people not wanting to take accountability, but that what you're talking about is that it's exactly that. Like whether we're talking about the sanctuary or shoring up yourself and your family, it's like, what can I take accountability for?
Right.
And actually doing those things.
Yeah. One of the things the dragons asked me, and it fried my noodle. And I've actually asked this question of a few other people. It's like, if the infrastructure we know today, grocery stores, power, gasoline, if all that, if let's just magically say somebody flipped the switch, shut it all off. Are you okay?
For 5 minutes. 6 minutes, give or take, maybe less.
And I was like, well, and I mean, I've taken a lot of survival classes, so I'm like, well, I could do this, and I was like, well, I'd have to, and there's a lot of things I did not have. I'd have to start gathering or preparing, and that's when they're like, then how self-sufficient are you? And I mean, me being me, and this is a harsh one that a lot of people, Jaden Bourne is probably going to side-eye me when I say this. But if that scenario happened, the truth be told, when that switch flips, my expiration date kicks in because I'm epileptic. I have medications that I require, which means if that day comes, without those, my time's limited. And that's another thing people don't like to look at. It's like, if you're really put in that scenario, what are your odds?
Yeah.
Well, that's do you want to be at ground zero or do you want to survive into the post-apocalypse? That's the big question. How long do you really want to last through this? But the big thing is getting to that point of I'm good either way. Like if the powers that be are going to call me to step up to live for another 50 years and try to make the best out of it, great. If the powers that be call me to be evaporated at the first drop of whatever needs to be dropped, then it is what it is. It is what it is.
And that right there, though, EA, I think that might be one of the biggest keys. Making the best of it. It really kind of ties back to, living and appreciating what we have, why we have it, why the entities are so eager to experience the physical realm. What we take for granted. I think that really is it. Because if you can better yourself to the best of your ability within the constraints you are given, and truly enjoy the adventure of life, both the ups and the downs, I think the entire worldview shifts drastically. And that includes like punching the clock or working, whatever it is you do for work, finding joy in the fact that you're able to actually do that.
reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, he was doing this experiment of how to make my life good while he's in a concentration camp in the Holocaust.
Ooh, yeah.
And so like I can look at my life and go, gosh, I've got some ups and downs I got to deal with. But like every day he's waking up and thinking, how can I have a meaningful, joyful life while he's in that circumstance? And you can. That was the whole point of that book. He was able to find a way of having meaning and having joy even there.
And sometimes it takes that, because like I've been told before, it's like you should find purpose and joy in everything you do. And those were pretty words. But
Right.
again, due to my epilepsy, I went from being able to work my tail off to, oh, look, you had a seizure at work. And now they're like, well, we're going to put you at home for 6 months with pay. My first brain was like, I get paid to stay home? Hot dang. And a week later, I'm like, this freaking sucks. I can't drive. I can't go anywhere. I might as well be in a freaking prison cell. And you don't realize how much getting out of the house, going to work, maybe talking, you may not even consider them friends. They may just be that asshole at work you cut up with. You don't really get along. You just banter, but you don't realize how much it means to you until it's taken away.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't until that moment that I realized how much work could be enjoyed. And we really need to try and get people to understand that again. I don't know if we can, but I hope we do. Finding that enjoyment in everything you do, like that book you just mentioned, DA. What was the title again?
Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning. I may have to read that. I think I have, but I want to read it again, just to be sure. And maybe something everybody wants to read, because if someone can find meaning to their day to day in that situation, I can't think of a person in the modern world that can't find some meaning.
Well, Matt, I feel like that's something that's been echoed by just about every savior of every religion that's come along. Most religions have a savior figure, an avatar that comes along, and most of them live pretty crappy lives. Most of them have pretty horrendous things happen to them, and they're always saying, "Hey, don't let yourself get distracted by your own suffering."
Yeah, I can see that.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. But no, even like with me working a mundane desk job as my regular work, I mean, I find ways to enjoy my work days, even though I'm stuck at a computer and sometimes having to yell at several people on the phone. But I do find joy in it because, my line of work, I actually do help out a lot of people. And it gets me a couple of days of the week out of the house, so I'm not doing baby talk all day. So I get to talk to some people, and actually our office is dog friendly, so some of my coworkers bring their dogs, so I get to have puppy time while I'm at the office.
Yeah. So.
It's. I have fantasies about going back to working in a cabinet shop, because that was my career before becoming the Antichrist, was working at a cabinet shop. and just the moment of like clocking in at the little computer, joking around with the guys as they're coming in. Everyone's kind of half asleep. You don't really want to be there. The whole experience, like there is so much like community built into where you work that I really miss. Because I wake up, and while I'm having my coffee, I get to work on my computer, and I'm pretty much at home alone, working alone all day. And I do miss the community aspect of a job.
Yep.
Yep.
It
There
really
is that.
is.
Even like you said, even if it's people that aren't really my friends, actually, I kind of hate this guy and I wish he would go away, but now I miss him.
Yeah. Now you miss him, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how that works.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and even if you got the people who end up in prison, like the worst thing that they can do to you is separate you from all the other pieces of crap that are in for jail with you and put you in solitary because we have a need to connect and to have that community.
Humans are pack animals.
Yeah.
We really are. Even people who are very much introverts, they will still pick the people that they actually do want to be around.
They just tend to be a little bit more selective.
Right.
Absolutely.
My wife's a good example because there's a few admin that even questioned whether she existed, because she just does not like to people. But at the same time, if she views you as a friend, she is like one of the most viciously protective people you will ever meet.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and that is another part of it too. Of I think as the world gets crazier, keep your circle small. You don't need to have a million friends. Like, have a few friends that you know you are actually going to be there for you.
oh, I'm a big believer in small circles. I really am.
Yeah, a million friends just becomes a web of chaos. Not there's no managing, there's no keeping track. It's
like,
you know, you get a group of 6, 7 people maybe, and it's like you know where you're at with each and every one of them.
So, I mean, a good example for this is I've always been told I'm too harsh and, you know, I keep people at too much a distance. It's hard for me to get to a point where I call someone a friend. And when my wife first joined the military, it was a cross-country move for us once she got her final station out of boot camp in school. And I was like, you know what? Everybody keeps telling me I'd be happier if I was more open, if I was more accepting. I was like, let's test this hypothesis. Yeah, that didn't work. It sent me into the worst depression I've ever been in my whole life. And before that was over, I can't name one person in that area that didn't stab me in the back. So I went back to very small circle, and weirdly, it's been much longer time than that small time frame, and I've not had any issues because it's back down to, instead of just social with everyone, it's back down to smaller circle. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm Southern, so I'm sociable. I can go in and talk with anyone, but who I confide in, who I trust, who I keep close, those are different things.
One thing that's interesting that makes me think is, like, our evolution is not a straight line upwards. It's like in jumps that you jump up, and with those jumps, it seems like every time one of those big leaps forwards happens for me, the people who were gonna stab me. Like that's one of the first things I notice is, like, whatever betrayals are waiting there, they just leap out all at once. I have everybody that was going to turn against me turns against me, and I go, okay, cool. Now I can wash my hands of you, and I can get on to my next level. But it is necessary. It's like you can't carry those people to the next level if they're not actually there to help you.
No, it's weird because, and I mean, you guys can check me on this and give me your view, but it's almost like that cycle of nature plays out in all aspects at all levels. Because whether it's your personal life or whether it's the world at hand, you know, they got that saying, hard times make good people make for good times make for weak people make for bad time or hard times. And it's just a cycle. Weirdly, if we pull that down to the personal level, we don't really do a lot of growing during the good times because it's good. We're comfortable. Things are nice. We grow most when the shit hits the fan because that's when we're put to the test. You're forged by fire, not by margaritas and pillows.
We should really work on trying.
I mean, so I think there's some value to understanding that.
Right. Like that kind of we've had conversations in the past where it's, you know, as you mentioned, those kind of Ragnarok cycles are in every aspect all over the place. You can always find them somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, if you want Baldur back in your life, well, you're gonna have to go through hell because he doesn't just get reborn for nothing.
Only after the battle, when hell throws open the gates, does he get reborn?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, this has been great. This has been. We'll go ahead and wrap up, get some final thoughts from everyone on this if we can. Because I think we've been here for over an hour, but it has been great. I've enjoyed this.
Absolutely.
A lot of
Oh, this
great
was fun.
insights.
I love these things.
They are fun. So, Born, we'll start with you.
Oh, great.
I told you I'd get to throwing you under the bus eventually. You thought I forgot, but I didn't.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm getting flashbacks to last time. So, final thoughts. We've kind of been all over the place today.
We have.
So, I think I'll probably chalk it up to sets of advice we talked about before. Completely lost my thought just now. Like I had it, I was building it. All right, form it into a sentence. I dropped it.
For once, we're all quiet and listening.
Right. Just like I had my idea, was stringing it into a sentence, and I dropped it down a damn sewer grate.
Seriously? Okay.
No, essentially.
I'll start your brain, Jade.
Yeah. Hold on.
He's over here having trouble with the starter.
I don't know. My biggest takeaway is just the fascinating fact that, entities play such a huge role in our lives, whether it's passively or actively, whether, seeking for their help or they're just good intent to try to just help us push forward. I mean, we've all had our experiences on massive change in our lives and seeing change in other people's lives with entity influence on that. And it's just honestly one of the best experiences that, I've personally seen in my magical practice. And I continuously, to this day, just fascinates me over and over again on just how much they have influence and guidance over us.
Yeah, I'd heavily agree.
You started?
Yeah, no,
Go
I
ahead.
think we got the engine running here. So, and similar, going along with that same statement there, going back to what I had said earlier about what the Morgan had said. I mean, if those changes are going to happen, if you're taking part in Magick, regardless of whether it's just a little bit, I dabble occasionally and maybe do a couple of coin tricks at birthday parties, or if you're going full sail into a genuine spiritual path, the change is going to happen. You might see it coming, you might not, but just let it, work with it. Roll with the punch, see it through. Don't try to interrupt or fight it. Don't be a half-formed butterfly, because you ain't flying with one weird gangly shaped wing that doesn't do anything. Go with it. Document the whole process if you have to. You want to track where you gave from, but go with it. Be prepared to roll when you need to.
Grab your rum and hoist the colors, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's not bad advice.
Yeah.
EA, my man.
Just don't tie yourself to the mast. I've been told that's bad.
That's a story for another time.
I'm sailing. What about Bob moment?
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Born's saying there is that and kind of what Jade was saying too is you are being guided. If you're listening to this conversation, you're being guided, and you're guided to this conversation. You're guided to the little thing. You're guided to all the distractions, all the accidents. This is all actually part of your transformation. And so, yeah, don't fight it. Actually, just go with it. There's a book, A Course in Miracles by Abraham, that talks a lot about if you're paddling your boat and you're not getting anywhere, drop your oars and let the river carry you, and it'll carry you in the right direction. And so, don't fight it. This is all part of the transformation. Let yourself tap into maybe an additional level of trust, because that's one of the big things, that there's the powers that are guiding us, whether we're talking about demons or angels or dragons. These are stronger than us. They're wiser than us. We should trust them a little bit more.
So no. You go in this.
That's very good. That's that's solid. I don't really have a lot to add to that, honestly, except, point out, like we've all said, that the road gets bumpy. It gets hard. No one is free and clear of that. You may not be able to see the hardships another person's facing, but everyone's got them. And I know the phrase chin up is hard to understand, but whether it's chin up or just keep your eye on the road and move forward as best you can, you will get through that storm, and you will be surprised because hell, I don't think any of us would thought we'd be sitting here today.
Yeah.
I mean, we all come from very different backgrounds, but we've had very similar journeys on different paths.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's fascinating to me personally. So, yeah.
I think just from hearing some of the stories today, it's actually amazing we're all still alive.
Yeah.
And so
these cases, yeah.
There is that that it is a gift to be alive, and then to look at look at the person I've become and that I'm still becoming, and look at this is all really a miraculous gift.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. I have been told, they're like, do you regret this, or this? And it's like, no, actually I don't. Because
those things shape who you are now.
They help shape who I am now. And even my mistakes gave me wisdom that I can pass on to another person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, both my daughters, they will ask me a question, and it's like, well, I done this, and it blew up in my face like this. I was like, I can't make you do one thing or the other, but at least in my experience, you put the match there, this is what happens.
Right. And it's like a lot of people could really take that lesson of, I mean, granted, at the moment, it really sucked. But the things you learn from the experience, or the things you develop from it, matter quite a bit. And to try and resist it happening or wishing you could undo it, it's better to take it in stride and build on what you have, rather than wishing I could mix and match past events.
I take that back. I do have something to add to it. Don't be afraid to live.
Yes.
The good, the bad, that is all life. Don't be afraid of it. Get out there and experience it to its fullest. And just like that song that reminds me so much of Tina, live like you're dying. Enjoy it. That doesn't mean, assume there's not tomorrow. Plan for tomorrow, but enjoy today.
Yeah.
Because when was the last time you actually stopped to truly admire how beautiful a sunrise or set is? And the power behind it.
Absolutely.
All right. EA,
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us again.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is so much fun.
This has been great.
Yeah, it has. I may reach out to you again some point, because this.
I'm always happy to come and chat with you. So absolutely no problem.
Careful with that.
and I'm gonna hold you to that barbecue at some point too.
Hey, dude, I got no problem firing up the smoker and feeding a bunch of people. I really do. I actually got a brisket in the fridge right now.
Well, I'm getting hungry, so I'm gonna be over in 15.
Dude, if you can make it here in 15 minutes. First off, I think we have a business and travel.
Okay.
Secondly, we'll cut a deal, and I'll while I smoke that brisket. Yeah.
Well, we all saw that Jade has the secrets of teleportation already.
Yes, we did. We saw that. We're going to try and market that too.
It's been awesome, guys. We will talk again soon.
All right, man.
All right.
Take it
All righty,
easy.
man.
Everyone, thank you. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.